and Robbo.
Streaming across the globe, Ben Norris, Rob McKnight, and David Robinson.
Ben, Rob and Robbo. News, reviews, entertainment news. It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo. Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.
Welcome to the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. Here's Rob McKnight.
Hello and welcome to the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. I am Rob McKnight and it's a very special day. There's balloons here and that can only mean one thing. It's David Robinson's birthday. Hello, Robbo.
Oh, bless you and Amanda there. That's absolutely wonderful. I love that. Thank you very much. It's very sweet. And the thing I'm going to say quickly is your wife makes a mean vegetarian sausage roll, sorry.
Yes.
And she was so lovely to bake some for me, and I've got them here, and I've been eating them. They are beautiful. So, Amanda McKnight, thank you very much.
Yes, we were able to get them up to the Sunshine Coast for you, Robbo, and I'm glad about that. But, Ben, you don't seem like you've gone to much effort.
That's what you think.
Oh, wow, that's really good.
Ta-da!
That's like a balloon drop. Oh, thank you, Benjamin.
Hang on a second.
Oh, that's very sweet.
Hang on a second.
Yeah.
I got it. Oh,
Yep.
sorry.
Oh,
Someone
that's
just
heaps
threw
quicker than Rob
a
did.
bunch of streamers at me. Okay.
Now, Robbo,
How bad is this though that I completely forgot and I was trying all morning to not say happy birthday to you, and you sent me a really lovely message this morning, and I'm like, how do I avoid saying happy birthday until the show?
You know what I thought? I thought that little bitch. I'm sending him a nice message, and he hasn't even
So
said anything.
self-involved.
I thought, oh my goodness. So thank you, Ben. Thank you, Rob. Thank you,
Well,
Amanda.
Robbo, the
Thank you.
McKnight clan love you very much. Girls, come on in. Give him a happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Robbo. Happy birthday to you. Robbo, I've got this
Yes.
present for you. Now, through the magic of TV, I better do it the right way. Here we go. I'll try again.
Oh.
Here we go. There.
Oh. I didn't know what. I thought you wanted me to blow it out on camera. That is so sweet. The magic of television, that is fantastic. I've always wanted to do a pass-through. That's very sweet. Thank you to all the McKnight girls there. You're all beautiful. You're all wonderful. Thank you very much. And here we go. Wishing. Thank you.
Oh,
very
we
much.
missed it. We
Thank
missed
you.
the blow. All right.
Did you?
What is happening?
We'll do it
What is
later.
happening? I
We
didn't
do
even
have a
get
very
that.
big
There's
show, and there is a lot to cover as we cover our hot topics. Thank you very much, girls. Well done.
That was
All
very
right,
sweet. Thank you very much.
Let's move on to our hot topics. And there were dramatic scenes in Sydney at the weekend during an anti-lockdown protest. Renee Altakariti was marching near the New South Wales Parliament House when she was approached by officers. Take a look at what happened.
My son's with me. I am not under arrest for anything.
Why is she under arrest?
You need to get
Why is she under arrest? Can you grab the chest? Can you grab the chest, please? Immediately. Why is she under arrest?
Come on.
Why is she under arrest? Why is she under arrest?
Everyone, you choose her. You choose her out of everyone. You choose her out of everyone. You choose her. Come on. I have not committed no offense. You're scaring my son.
What offense has she
Move away
done?
from me and my son. Move away.
What
has she done? Me and my son.
Why
does it stay back?
Look, it's pretty distressing to watch, and there have been a lot of people come out and talk about the fact that they say the police did the wrong thing. Robbo, what do you think? Do you think the police did the wrong thing?
100% no. They were doing exactly what they were there to do. They did it very, very well, I think, under the circumstances. Basically, she wasn't arrested straight away. All she was asked was what she was doing and her name. She wouldn't give her name, and she wouldn't move on. She'd been spoken to police earlier in the afternoon, and she kept going, and she said she was exercising. But I really think the police handled this very, very well. They are the winners. She is absolutely the loser in this situation. And then to start using her child as a prop, that's really what I think was happening here, was really disgusting. All they wanted to do initially was ask for her name, and she wouldn't do it. And she kept walking off and then bringing the kid into it. And then that's when things got heated. The police were brilliant in this, very calm, very measured, and absolutely in their right. She was saying that they've got no right to charge her, they've got no right to arrest her, they've got no right to question her. Yes, they do. You're not above the law, sweetheart. Benjamin?
Well, I'm just going to say that it was, I think I'm very easily manipulated, because as soon as those children started crying and the distress level was amped up, I immediately went to think, oh, this is being handled really badly. And I was really distressed watching that footage. I guess you are right. And I guess this is just proof of how we just need to dig a little bit deeper when something like this is shown on social media. It's so easy for us to just quickly have a knee-jerk reaction and hear small children crying and saying a mother in distress and think that they're the ones, you know, that have been treated badly, where you're absolutely correct. Once I read the article that came with this, I realized that, you know, the police were just doing all they could. I feel really weird talking about this with all your balloons and streamers in the background, Robbo.
that can happen.
It's a serious topic, and, you know, we certainly have had some fun at the beginning of the show. But I think there is a major problem in this country how we don't respect our police. And, you know, people are dying from this. And at what point do we say we're not doing the right thing here? Ben?
Well, she wasn't doing the right thing. Sorry, she wasn't doing the right thing. That's the case at the moment. The laws are that there needs to be social distancing. She was not. She was already warned. She was asked to move away, and then this escalated at this point. What I didn't like as well is that there are women running in, and men as well, running in front of police officers with their phones in their face going, "What's your name? What's your name? What are you doing?" Again, hats off to the police. They kept their cool, because we've got to remember, at the end of the day, it shouldn't have got to this point. All she had to do was supply her name, and the police have a right to ask someone's name. She didn't do it. She kept walking off. She became agitated and aggressive, and that's why she was arrested. She wasn't arrested because she was protesting. She wasn't arrested because, she was anti-lockdown. She was arrested because she wasn't respecting police, and that always has to be the case.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on. And the coronavirus has changed many aspects of our lives, including how first responders deal with patients. In various states in the USA, CPR has either been withheld or the time spent doing it greatly reduced. The result of this means people who would potentially be resuscitated are dying. In one hospital alone, 7 employees have died from complications due to COVID-19, and over 600 nurses have had to take time off. Ben, paramedics have chosen to do this job, but they have taken the Hippocratic oath as well. Is this really the right thing to do?
Well, look, I think at the end of the day, we have to go with who are our leaders and who are our medical experts. And I think that they must be doing this for a very good reason. I don't necessarily think they would be doing this willy-nilly. It's very traumatic for anyone whose family member has been or has contracted this virus. And everyone wants, you know, the same things to happen that they expect will happen. But unfortunately, you know, the people at the highest level are making these decisions, and it seems harsh. It seems really harsh.
Robbo, people are putting their lives on the line. At what point do people have the right to pull out? I mean, I don't know if they've taken the Hippocratic oath, like I said, but they certainly have taken an undertaking to try and save lives. We're letting people die.
They are. You're right, though. They don't take the Hippocratic oath, but they do take an EMS oath, which is basically saying that they will do everything they can to preserve and save someone's life. The problem here goes all the way to the top. This is not going to be a Trump bashing thing, but when you've got a country that has, as we go to air this afternoon, 80,000 deaths, more than any other country in the world, that's a big problem. So when I think the whole issue stems from the top, and it's rotting down the tree, because the bad decisions that have been made by the Trump administration are now affecting people on the ground who are trying to save people. In that article from the New York Times we saw that they catalogued 3 people who had had heart attacks, and all of them were just pronounced dead at the scene because CPR couldn't be applied in those situations, because I think of the drastic and disgusting way that coronavirus has been held in the US. I think that's the big problem here. If I had a partner or a family member who was a paramedic, I would absolutely support them in not doing CPR. That might sound harsh, but I want my loved one to come home. And because the country in the US has stuffed up completely this coronavirus response, I think it's okay for them to do it. It's not the best thing. It's not the right thing. I'm sure it's not the thing they want to do, but that's the world we live in.
This is a really hard thing. We do have people putting their lives on the line every day, don't we, Ben, as they deal with the coronavirus, nurses, doctors. And then we have idiots not doing the right thing and protesting the fact people are trying to be looked after. At what point, is stupid just stupid?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, people think that they can rise above it. People think they're indestructible. People think they can change the rules when they're ready to change the rules. I mean, we can't be really too shocked about stupid people these days. And unfortunately, this is one of those times where stupid people is absolutely going to affect the rest of the population. And I guess instead of talking to them like they're stupid, I always find the best thing to do is just to call them out on it. Call people out on social media when you see them doing the wrong thing. And also with friends and family who are choosing to do the wrong thing, maybe give them, your advice on why they shouldn't be doing that.
I think that's such a good point there, Ben. I really do. When people are protesting the lockdowns and they're getting coronavirus themselves, what they're actually doing is not, they are spreading the coronavirus if they've got it and they've come into contact with people. But what we're seeing here, this is such a very poignant story. And that is that, yes, you might not have coronavirus and yes, you might hate the lockdown laws, but people who don't have coronavirus are dying indirectly because of it. Like those people that we spoke about before with the heart attacks in New Jersey. They're dying because of the coronavirus, but it's got nothing to do with the coronavirus directly. And I think, Ben, you make an excellent point with that. And I think that's the real tragedy here is arrogant, ignorant people are protesting, and they shouldn't be, because it's costing more lives than what the coronavirus is taking.
Well, under new legislation brought in by the Morrison government, private and independent schools around the country will see their funding means tested. The consequences are that some elite schools will receive more cash while others will see their accounts drop. Robbo, is this a fair system?
I've got to be honest with you, Rob. I didn't realise that the government actually gave this much funding or any funding to private schools. I was always under the impression that a private school had to generate its own funding.
Oh,
now, that's
Robbo, no.
No, but I didn't
At all.
The cost of sending someone to school. So there was a private school on the North Shore of Sydney, and to go from, I think, year 3 to year 12 was over $350,000. I didn't realise that on top of that exorbitant amount of money, the government also chucked in cash as well. So I was kind of shocked by this. But Rob, you've obviously got school-aged children there. Do you think that there should be government funding, or do you think you're paying too much in the first place?
Look, I think going to a private school is an absolute choice, and I understand the reasons people do it. The problem I have is when you see these elite schools that have 2 pools, cricket ovals and all this kind of stuff, and they're still receiving government handouts. For the lower range private schools, I don't overly have a problem, but ultimately the money should be going to disadvantaged schools. I grew up in a disadvantaged school, and there was a lot we didn't have, and it blows my mind that people in an elite school were getting more funding on top of the exorbitant fees their parents were paying. It's just not right. Ben, what's your view on this?
I'm back.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realise you were gone.
I had disappeared for a minute because I was trying to get rid of all these streamers, because I was thinking, we're talking about all these topics that I feel really passionate about, and I just feel really silly with all these balloons and streamers. But the more I tried to get rid of them, the more they kept appearing. Now, I do feel really passionate about this, and I think it's so unfair. It's unfortunate that some people have more money than others, and for those that can afford to send their kids to private school, good on them, and I could definitely see why you'd want to do that. But it just doesn't ever seem fair. When the government is handing out money to schools, I 100% think it needs to be evenly distributed. It should not be given to private schools willy-nilly. And
so
I feel like...
hang on, you're saying 100% evenly distributed. Does that mean private schools should get the same amount of money as a disadvantaged school?
Absolutely. Like, if the government is handing out money to assist the population of Australia, they should be handing it out evenly. It shouldn't be that some people can afford to go to a private school, so that means that they get more help and more aid from our politicians. It just doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, but I just want to be clear, because my personal feeling is that a disadvantaged school should get more funding than an elite private school. But you think it should be an even amount of money for everyone?
I think that they should be evenly giving the money out. Like, I think that is the correct way to do it. I think, unfortunately, yes, we do think, oh, well, that school isn't getting as much, and so maybe the money is better spent there. For me personally, I think it should just be evenly distributed.
Okay. Outspoken Meghan and Harry critic Piers Morgan is all of a sudden singing to a different tune. In the past, the Good Morning Britain host has said Meghan is fake, a shameless piece of work and a ruthless social climber. But in a new interview with The Times, Morgan says he's gone too far in the past and he will change the way he talks about the couple moving forward. Robbo, what do you think is happening here? And have you ever said something that you regret?
What I think is happening here is I think maybe you've got to try and read the room, and I think Piers Morgan is probably quite good at that. You get out, people like that, commentators get outraged when there's outrage to be outraged about, but when they feel that there's no outrage or it's lessening, they change their tune. So don't think that it's any kind of, it's not real or authentic, I don't think. It's just that if the public then turned again on Meghan in a really big way, then suddenly Piers Morgan would be singing his old tune. Talking about things that you've said that I regret, I'm always worried, if I can be serious for a moment, when you're doing something like this, and when we did Studio 10, because it's in the age of outrage and offence and cancel culture, you're always worried about what you're going to say, because in the age of Twitter, everyone can be offended by any little thing that you can do. So there's always that thing that I worry about. But the thing that I probably most regret, I didn't actually say, but I don't know if you remember this, Rob. I cleaned an ARIA award in a very suggestive way on Studio 10 during a live cross. And I tried to find...
I remember this.
The clip's not there. But to my defense, so your ARIA award's your triangle, and they would get white gloves and they would, clean the award. I just cleaned the award a bit too long.
Oh, come on. You meant to do that.
I did. Well, half and half. But I regretted it so much because all you said to me, you keyed on afterwards and you just said... too far, mate. So that's my thing. What about yours, Rob? So many.
Amanda said nothing, and I don't think that's true. I just don't think she wants me to say anything. I'll come back. Come back to me, Ben. What about you?
Oh, I have to say the biggest regret I've ever had was talking about not going through my puberty until I was 17. And then I was on a show which was on Channel 31 and seen on Foxtel. And I started talking about that I didn't have any pubic hair until I was 17. And that I used to get like this, this is way too much information, but it's not R-rated, so it's fine. It's already been on TV once, so why not bring it up again? But I just wanted to know what it'd all look like once I would get pubic hair. So I stole the hair off the back of this hairy hand show bag I got at the Royal Melbourne show and, wanted to see what it looked like. Anyway, this ended up on television, much like what we're talking about now, and I hate my life. I hate my life. Why did I tell this story again?
Very happy birthday to me, I guess, with that story. Bloody hell, Benjamin. Jeepers creepers. No offense, well done. I didn't know that you'd gone through puberty.
Yes, unfortunately, yes. No, I mean, fortunately, yes, I had gone through puberty. My voice is yet to drop, but that's okay. I'll get that for my 50th birthday.
This is a hard rap. Let's the hard rap. This is getting weird. We've got the share your feedback there on the bottom there, so that means we've got to wrap the segment. Remember, go on
a lot of people.
/BRR show. And let us know what you think. Not about your puberty. We don't want to care about it. We don't want to hear about it.
Well, look, thank you for that. What an interesting first segment. You know what, though? It is time to get some news headlines. And for that, of course, we cross to Aaron Young in the Ticker newsroom. Hello, Aaron.
Hello, gentlemen. Great to be with you. Yes, the news headlines for today, this Monday, May the 11th, and Victorians will finally be able to catch up with loved ones and friends from 11:59 tomorrow night with Premier Daniel Andrews, today revealing the easing of some tough rules on the roadblock away from a lockdown. The Premier this morning announcing cautious first steps, meaning footy is back, on its way back pretty soon, we are told. The PM is considering whether to slash the $1,500 JobKeeper payment amid fears it's creating zombie companies and draining the budget. Today it's the question we are all asking you: should the government start looking at removing JobSeeker, JobKeeper payments now restrictions are being eased? Head to our Twitter page if you'd like to vote on that. The World Health Organization's denied a bombshell report claiming China urged the organization to delay a global warning about coronavirus. The UN agency says a a German magazine's report about a phone call between the WHO chief and the Chinese President Xi Jinping back on the 21st of January was both unfounded and untrue. Her Majesty is withdrawing from public duties for months in what could be the longest absence of her 68-year reign. The 94-year-old monarch will remain at Windsor Castle indefinitely as coronavirus crisis continues across the UK. And is Brekkie Radio about to go national? A report in Radio Today says at least one of those big radio stations is planning to network breakfast radio. Others could soon follow. The upside is, well, the huge cost savings on those $1 million salaries, the downside, the loss of jobs, and the loss for us talent of those $1 million salaries, of course, as well. Let's have a look at the weather map now for this Monday. Melbourne, a sunny top of 19 degrees. Sydney, 21 and overcast. Brisbane, 25 and sunshine. Perth, 22 degrees and overcast. And Adelaide, a sunny top of 21. Let's have a look at the ASX now. Open slightly higher after a strong lead from Wall Street overnight. Investors focusing on Australia's plan to reopen the economy, a three-stage easing of restrictions. That is it. You are up to date, and as we throw back and wish you all a happy Monday, we have two announcements, of course. The first is happy welcome to the team to Ben Norris, who's going to be heading up our new program here at breakfast time, and also, perhaps as importantly, a very happy birthday to David Robinson from all of the Ticker team. We were all going to come up with the Ticker dances, but no one's agreed to it. Oh, here we go. They're happening behind us now. Perfect. Fantastic. I told everyone that we've slid into their contract that they have to dance when they're told. So, Mr. Norris, prepare for that.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, everyone. Ticker, that's lovely. Thank you.
I haven't been able to... Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. I haven't been able to tell the guys, but I need to rustle up the rundown, guys. I have a few crosses standing by that I'm just trying to get sorted behind the scenes. So, Ben, I would like to move on to entertainment. If you could pull up your entertainment documents and bring us the very latest in the world of entertainment, please. I know it's like random Monday. We're throwing the rundown out the window. It's Robbo's birthday. Everything's up for grabs. But if you could bring us entertainment, I would very much appreciate it.
Absolutely, Rob, I'd do anything for you. And making news headlines yesterday, Channel 7 has Big Brother coming back, and we have talked about it a lot. Sometimes I think I've spoken about it all day, every day, and I should get sick of it. But last night during House Rules, we got to see a little glimpse at one of the latest revealed housemates for 2020, and we've got that footage now. This is Angela.
I have been watching you, Australia. Welcome to my brand
Actually, this
new
is
house.
not Angela. This
for
is
a
in
new
fact
breed
the
of
original
housemate.
trailer for Big Brother. But it's actually quite interesting. Yesterday...
I'm a boss.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, that was her, Ben. That was the promo that ran last night, and she was only a small part of the promo.
I have been...
Oh. Can we see it again? Because I haven't seen it before.
Play it again, Mando.
Roll it again!
Watching you, Australia. Welcome to my brand new house. I have searched for a new breed of housemate.
I've lived in Broken Hill my whole life. With Sparky and one of the mines.
At home, I'm my mum. At work, I'm a boss.
Now, this particular ad had created a bit of controversy with lots of people thinking maybe Channel 7 had made a mistake. However, the people here at the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show actually contacted Channel 7, and they have confirmed that they will be releasing different housemates when they feel. So we will getting different snips other than the official people that are already coming out. So keep your eyes peeled on Channel 7. I believe last week they won the ratings week, so maybe people are tuning in to catch those housemates. Also making news is Love Island. Now, Love Island is a controversial show overseas in the UK. And just recently, they have made the decision to not go ahead with their summer series. It will be back in 2021, so it will be back. But with this particular this particular Love Islander, she's actually come out saying that the producers have taken a pretty sharp turn with the series and that they've been checking in to make sure that the health and well-being of all of their Love Island contestants are now being looked after, which is actually really great news to hear, because I think a lot of people had been really concerned after the deaths of two of the contestants who had suffered from mental health issues and had taken their own life. So I think it's very important that these producers have decided to take that into their hands and up the ante. It's a quote from her saying that the producers are ahead of the headlines and already contact them and prep them to make sure that they're able to handle them and also follow them up. So that's fantastic. Also making news is Ellen DeGeneres has been under fire recently for not necessarily being as nice as what she claims to be. She ends every episode with reminding her audience to be kind. However, she has been plagued with rumours that for the crew that work with her, that she's actually quite nasty to work with, and she's not like the character that we see on the television at all. It's actually quite funny because it's polarized the audiences, because audiences love Ellen, and it's hard for them to actually believe that Ellen is in fact a nasty person. You know, it's funny, I was asking Rob about this today. Rob, just a quick one. Ellen DeGeneres, what do you think? What do you think of Ellen?
I think Ellen is nasty behind the scenes, and I had a conversation with my wife and a friend who was over, and they wouldn't buy it. They would not buy it at all. They're like, we don't believe Ellen is mean and nasty. It's just people being mean and nasty to her. Where's the proof? And I'm like, so many people have come out and said she's a nasty person, but they wouldn't believe it at all. Ellen can do no wrong, apparently.
Well, I think the thing is that what people don't realise is they have a really high expectation of Ellen. So whenever they go to see her, if they don't get the television persona straight away, then they just say that she's rude. And I believe that this happens all the time with people. Like, if you catch people on a bad day, sometimes people do react badly. It's yet to be proven. And I think it'll be really interesting when someone leaks some audio or leaks some footage of her saying the wrong thing. But until then, I think it's probably worth just believing that Ellen is this lovely 62-year-old, TV host that's probably been down on her luck throughout the first part of her career and has really come up at the end. What's wrong with believing that, I guess?
Well, it'll come out.
Yeah, sorry. It will come out at the end. And fourth, she will come out. Sorry, she's already come out. Also making news is Siegfried and Roy. Roy has, unfortunately, he had contracted the coronavirus and he actually passed away over the weekend. Really sad for lots of fans who were hugely supportive of his time and his show at the Las Vegas. It was a really interesting show where he and his partner would interact with these white lions. The show actually came to a close in 2003 when one of these white tigers actually attacked Roy. Interesting to see, though, that he managed to survive a tiger attack on a live show, but wasn't able to survive coronavirus. So a bit of a sad story with that. And I don't want to end on that. I want to end on a really funny TikTok. This is our TikTok of the day. So if you're looking for a good laugh, check out these two celebrating a romantic date in a bath.
Oh no! Woo! That's Michael Jackson.
Oh, you're here!
What? Oh no! Oh, that poor woman. That's not so much funny, Ben. It's really scary.
Yeah, that's right.
What? Am I a terrible person?
Yes, that's scary.
For being...
You know that Michael Jackson had that, and when he was shooting a Pepsi commercial, some fireworks went off. And Michael Jackson ended up, it was the first time he got plastic surgery and the whiteness began.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. So Robbo, do you think it's also bad that I laughed at this lady's hair getting set on fire?
Look, I've been told by many police and emergency workers that because of the amount of hairspray that I put in my hair, I can't be near a naked flame. So I totally understand and respect the pain that this woman has gone through. I haven't seen a naked flame for about 15 or 16 years.
Good to know.
All right.
Okay, hashtag dead air then. Oh my goodness, guys.
Sorry,
I gave you
Robbo,
a fun
there's
thing
a
to
lot
do.
going on. You know, there's been a big shift in politics over the last week when it comes to the coronavirus. At first, all politicians from all sides were being very respectable of the decisions being made from our leaders. But now some are coming out and criticising their political rivals. Just last week, federal MP Tim Wilson came under fire for saying this about Victorian Premier Dan Andrews. He's probably enjoying the clampdown too much in terms of the authority and power it's given him. Tim Wilson is on the line now and joins me now. Tim, welcome to the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.
Thanks very much, but you cut that quote in half and you ignored the first bit, which said it wasn't my opinion. It's actually about a broader political narrative that's in the community.
That's a very interesting point, Tim, because that has certainly been the narrative in the papers and the media, and I've got to be honest, I didn't know that part.
But if you go back and watch the interview, I was asked a very specific question, which is, should states have different rules? And my response was, yes, they should. But it burdens those people in positions of political responsibility to explain then why there are differences, why, and obviously this was on Saturday, why Victorians can't go and visit their mum when people in New South Wales can. And of course, that's necessary to maintain public confidence, because if you don't, and it was evidence on the front page of the Herald Sun on Saturday, there builds a narrative that they don't want to let go of power.
So when you're putting it in context, and we often hear the excuse, I was taken out of context. This actually does sound like you were taken out of context. Did you expect the kind of backlash you got? You were told, Anthony Albanese called you childish.
Well, that's because Anthony Albanese didn't do any work, research or understand. But, I mean, this is a bloke who was in New South Wales enjoying a lot of the freedoms that Victorians weren't able to exercise, but seemed to think it was childish to actually talk about them. Now, of course, there are people who are taken out of context, but this is just an effort to slice and dice an interview. Now, it doesn't much bother me because in the end, the public can't have it both ways. They can't concurrently complain about politicians not answering substantively and honestly, and then concurrently turn around and complain when people do, and then it gets sliced and diced by the media.
Right. So in some ways you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. I think there is a big difference when you're completely taken out of context, though.
Well, I don't think, actually, to be fair, there was that much attempt to take it out of context. People just put it out there without bits that preceded it or read into it. A number of people have, for instance, called me up and said, I didn't like what you said about Dan Andrews. And I said, well, what is it that you didn't like what I said? And then you get them to read the quote back, and then they realise that what they're reading into it is something stronger than what you're actually saying. I mean, we have to be able and prepared to have honest conversations, both, and I don't recant anything I said, just for clarity, honest conversations about this crisis to make sure that we're making full and informed decision-making.
Now, look, there's no doubt a lot of Australians want restrictions eased, but there are some fears of a massive second wave if we ease those restrictions too soon. Last night on 60 Minutes, we heard from Florida-based infectious disease expert Dina Grayson. Let's have a listen to that.
Your country's done a fabulous job of getting your hands around this virus, and just as you're really, kind of entering flu season, and you're not having a lot of new cases, my worry is you let your foot off the brake, and so many people will die. So you're left with these terrible choices. Do you stay locked down with economic disaster, or do you try to open up too early? People aren't going to want to leave their houses, and then you end up with lots and lots of people dead.
Mate, Tim, there's obviously Dan Andrews has taken more time than others when it comes to easing restrictions. Is it possible that he's taking the right approach?
Well, I think all governments politely are flying blind, and that's not a criticism. That's the reality. Everyone's watching what's happening overseas. They're following what's happening domestically. They've obviously got to be informed by expert evidence, and the Victorian government is taking a more cautious approach. But it's also important to look at it in the totality, which is there are obviously direct lives lost as associated with COVID-19, and they're very tragic. But there are also other consequences, including health consequences and life consequences for others. So nobody knows who's doing it right. All we can do is assess it. The risk of a second wave is very real and one I take very seriously. So the only way you can manage it is to manage the risk. You can't avoid the risk.
Well, let me ask you this. When the virus first broke out, it seemed like all sides of politics were trying to work together. But now we seem to be heading back to the days of attacks. Do you think that's a fair view?
I don't think so. I think people need to be able to have honest conversations about whether policy is working and whether it's effective. Because in this virus, we have done things that we have never done before or we haven't done for a very long time. And so it does, I mean, the federal opposition has made the argument that there should be accountability of the government. I actually agree with them. The same should apply at the state level. And so, but to do that, you actually have to raise questions, challenge orthodoxies and question authority. That isn't attacking. That's people doing their democratic duty.
While I agree with that, we have seen attacks, though. Look, over the weekend, Monique Wright on Weekend Sunrise called out Tim Smith about some of the language he was using against Dan Andrews. Let's have a listen to that.
The only people that can't visit their mothers today on Mother's Day across Australia are criminals locked in jail and the good people of Victoria. Why? Because Chairman Dan, the Premier of Victoria, is obsessed about telling people how to live their lives. Frankly, the power has gone to his head and he's acting like a loony.
And Tim, you've got a very valid point there. I guess it's just a bit disappointing to hear this now become something about politics. Is it necessary to then call the Premier things like Chairman down, say that the Chief Health Officer is the Premier's puppet? Isn't there a way of making your point without doing name calling?
Well, unfortunately, the way that the media works and the way that politics works is you sometimes have to make a point in a very strong fashion.
Tim, we talk about the fact that, you said it's not an attack, we're just looking at constructive criticism, but that's an attack, that's political point scoring, isn't it?
Well, I haven't seen the whole interview, but I mean, obviously Tim's gone in a very explicit way and he's obviously questioned directly Dan Andrews and the decision-making he's making. So he'll be accountable for his own words. But
of course.
The important thing should be to focus on the substantive area of policy. And because we are going into this period where there are a diversity of views about how states should be approaching it, as well as local conditions, there needs to be national scrutiny, but there also needs to be local state-based scrutiny as well.
And you are 100% right, but I think one of the things going on here is as we now get to the balance between politics and what's good for the nation, we're starting to get back into those old habits of Labor versus Liberal and government versus opposition, and the nasty side is coming out, and I just don't think voters are ready for that. And when you call the Premier of the state Chairman Dan because he loves the power, can you understand why voters just don't want a bar of it?
Well, I can understand why people find difficult conversations challenging. And, in the end, we all...
There's a difference between a difficult conversation, though, isn't there, and name-calling when we're dealing with something like this.
No, I don't disagree with that. And that's why it's important to keep the conversation respectful and focus on the substantive issues. And that's what I've sought to do at every point, and I would hope that everybody else seeks to do at every point, because that's actually how you're supposed to have a proper discussion. And
yes,
the conversations we as a country are about to have about the future, not just in terms of managing the health crisis, but the economic crisis that will frankly continue to unfold for a significant period of time, needs to be done in a position where we're talking about substance, because it's going to have material impact on the quality of people's lives for up to a decade to come.
Absolutely. Now, look, while you're here, I just thought there's so much news happening today involving the government, and one of the topics making news is from news.com.au. They're reporting Scott Morrison is considering slashing the $1,500 JobKeeper payment or phasing it out faster than expected amid fears it's creating zombie companies that don't exist without wage subsidy. This scares me that the early closure of the scheme would adversely affect those it was meant to help. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, the focus of the JobKeeper program is to support workers in businesses to maintain their business connection and their employment connection throughout this crisis. There are businesses, tragically, which won't come back from this crisis with or without the JobKeeper subsidy. And so we've got to constantly look and review at the situation and make informed decisions about its viability, and that can mean to shorten it, can mean can extend it. But I think there's an obligation to be clear with the public as those decisions are made and give sufficient lead time, because people will need to adjust their circumstances. The big concern is that a lot of businesses, sadly, that are in what we call hibernation aren't going to come back, and keeping people from seeking out new employment could actually be detrimental to them.
Yeah, look, but the fact is there's a bit of a panic, I feel like, with the JobKeeper, though it's running $20 billion under budget, but we are facing on the whole, a big budget black hole with the stimulus package the government has given people. Is it really a problem if some people are rorting the system, if the greater good people are getting the money they need? You know, a reduction in that JobKeeper scheme is the difference between paying rent sometimes.
It's not a point about rorting. It's a point about what is going to be in the best interests of people to be able to move past this crisis. Now, there's going to be people who work for companies. Those companies are going to be able to kick up and start up and move on. But if we deliberately carry people in businesses that aren't viable and where there won't be jobs, the big risk is then people won't be able to move on as quickly to be able to get future employment that's sustainable. So this is a very complicated balancing exercise. We've never done it before, and it's about making sure we get the right policy measures in place so that we can address unemployment as quickly as possible, because we all suffer if there's high unemployment.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I've got to say, I think we have seen it in the opinion polls. The Australian public has rallied behind governments, state governments, the federal government in a time of crisis, and that's what Australians do really well, isn't it?
It is, but I mean, none of that negates the fact that anyone should take anything other than that there's a spirit there for governments to do well, and people want governments to do well. I want the Victorian government to do well. I want the national government to do well, but it doesn't negate scrutiny. It doesn't negate accountability. There are going to be mistakes made along the way. It's in our interest to identify them as quickly as possible so they don't compound, so that we can do the best thing by our state and our country.
Look, I agree with you. My only piece of advice as a voter who watches on is I'm not ready for the smart-ass name calling. I just want, as you said, genuine debate. And that's what we need right now as we try to get our way out of this. Tim, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. Thanks for joining us on the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.
You take care.
Thank you, Tim. Guys, what do you think there? I thought Tim was actually pretty reasonable.
Yeah, he definitely was really reasonable. And a big shout out to, the people that actually are following us on this show and that are regular viewers. There was a huge request over the weekend for us to reach out to Tim and have him join the show. We asked him to do that this morning and he was here to answer those questions. I think the unfortunate thing about politics these days is that a lot of politicians will get misquoted and then some of them will want outrageous headlines. Between those two things, we don't necessarily know how strong that relationship really is. I think it was interesting for you to ask a lot of those questions and, make him accountable for his answers. And I think that's when we get to see the truth behind, someone like Tim Wilson is when you do get to ask him questions and we do get to have his time, he seems to make a lot more sense than what he does when we read about him in the paper.
What do you think, Robbo?
Look, my issue here is, I believe he said to you in that great interview, thank you, Rob, is that he doesn't retract anything that he says. If it turns out that Premier Dan Andrews has done the right thing, is he willing to then get on a national podium and say, you know what, I went pretty hard on him and I made a mistake?
But that was his point.
I'm going to tell you right now,
his point was he
won't do it.
Those words that have been quoted for him that have been outraged, he's saying weren't his words. He was saying this is what people are saying. So doesn't that give him some distance?
No, come on, Rob. When it's the same thing as when a New Idea or a Woman's Day magazine says sources say sources.
Do you know what?
Close to
I
the
actually
couple.
don't think it is, because
as an interviewer, available online.
As an interviewer, I have asked. Sorry, Ben, just give me one sec. As an interviewer, Robbo, I have asked questions that have not been my own personal view, but it has been a conversation taking part. Doesn't mean I'm trying to use that as getting away across my own personality. If I've got a question, I will say it from my own words. But there are definitely times I look at something and go, oh, this group of people are saying this. I should ask that question, even if it's not what I think.
Which I agree with you. And I think from a media point or a journalism point, absolutely. You will hear 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 people say to you, well, this is what I think. When a politician uses that, I think it's kind of a get out of jail free card or a little point scoring system there. I'm not saying that Tim Wilson wasn't saying what he thinks. I'm not saying that. But for a politician to get on a national platform and say, this is what people are saying to me. But then you've got to look at the other thing. We're seeing other polls that show that Australia or Australians do understand that they've got to be in lockdown. They do respect what's happening with those laws. So if it's someone like a politician to go, well, I've heard people say to me, I'm sorry, I naturally look at, especially Australian politicians, especially at this time, I look at anything they say with skepticism. So just because he says that people have said this to me,
and absolutely,
I can't believe that we're giving him absolute, gold currency in what he's saying.
But
I don't believe that.
So dig a little deeper. So dig a little deeper. This is the problem that we're having at the moment. That transcript of what was misquoted is available for the general public to be able to listen to. And we, as the general public who do vote, when it comes to not knowing the answers, don't vote for your politicians like you barrack for your sport. Dig a little deeper, read the transcripts, find out what the policies are, know who you're voting for, know what it stands for. And I think that's been a really big problem in Australia, is a lot of people just, jumping on something and saying, oh, the Liberal government, oh, the Labor government. I don't really care which side you are voting for, but what I do care about is doing the research and making sure you know who you're voting for.
And that's the point, isn't it? That Tim actually agreed. It's about policy right now. And he seemed to be saying, and I don't want to be the one trying to speak for him, he did say that he agreed that now is not the time for the name calling and and that side of politics. And if politicians are trying it right now, they're not going to get away with it. I thought Monique Wright did a great job on Weekend Sunrise calling that out because, yes, have a debate about the issues, but get rid of the name calling. But you don't agree, Robbo. You think he was going down that path.
But remember, the federal government, so I know that they're going to sit again in May. Okay, they're going to sit again, I think, in a week or two. But they weren't going to. At the end of this, they were going to not sit in our national parliament until August, which meant that they were putting out all of these policies, JobKeeper, the stimulus packages, things like that. They were doing all of that, and there was going to be no oversight from the Senate, from the opposition, nothing. So for Tim Wilson to come out and say...
I'm not disputing any of that. Not disputing any of that.
But that's what we're saying, though. But he's saying... But this is a federal Liberal minister coming out and saying, oh, well, this is part of the democratic right and we should be able to, question everything. Yes, that's why federal government should not have been suspended until August. And it was only because of that it happened in May. I just think it's a bit rich for him to say, well, we've all got to have our right and have our say and things like that. That's great, but you're part of the federal Liberal Party who said, originally we're going to suspend all Parliament until August. What? That's not being accountable.
I think we've gone down the rabbit hole here because they're very different issues. Look, it is TV Monday, and Mulk is standing by, but I tell you why I want to bring him in right now. Mulk is getting fired up about something. He was literally yelling at the screen, and unlike our other viewers of this show who give it to us via feedback, Mulk, you're right there. So before we talk TV, what did you want to say?
The challenge is, and I'm going to side with the birthday boy here, it is a politician's job to work in policy and to execute that and to turn it into law and to do all of the things that are appropriate. So it's fine for him to say right now is about policy. His entire job is about policy, listening to his constituents and putting policy on the floor of government on floor of Parliament to be debated and worked through. So I don't like this whole flip-flop that goes between, now is policy and later is for political shenanigans. The whole problem we face is that the political class are concerned about the next election not the country for the next 20 years. So what happens now has impact there. And this flows back to the JobKeeper and the job seeker payments and the fact that we're crying out 6 months ago
But
to say
can I
that.
just be clear
for
on
example,
something,
yes.
though? We got Tim Wilson on because some comments were associated with him that blew up over the weekend, and he was kind enough to come on the program. That doesn't mean he gets a free pass, and I don't believe I gave him a free pass. But the point was, we were talking about the balance between criticising a government during a crisis and the idea of personally attacking them. And I think what he said was fair enough. Now, there have been other members, like we saw Tim Smith make personal attacks by calling Dan Andrews Chairman Dan, making him, seem like a dictator because he's telling everyone what to do. Well, that's the Premier's job in times of a crisis. And if the Victorian people don't agree with what Dan Andrews has done, they will get their chance at the next election. But this name calling is just complete BS, and I'm done with it. I want politics to actually work. We are in a crisis. In America, 80,000 people are dead because they're playing politics. We in Australia have kept our numbers down because we, until this point, haven't played politics. But now everyone's getting complacent and politicking is starting, and it's still not the time in my book.
And this is the challenge, Rob. I absolutely agree with you. I think that what we look to our political leaders to do is to lead us. And the best thing they can do is by setting the example of playing a straight bat when it comes to the issues of the day, and particularly in a time of crisis. I will also add, though, that no government should ever be short of being criticised. Now, there's a way to do it.
Completely
and that's
agree.
to talk about
100% agree.
It's when you start to make it based around personal attacks that you lose credibility. That's not what politics is about.
Well,
I think that
it
Tim's
has
definitely given us some food for thought. That's for sure. Like, can I just say a big shout out to Tim Wilson for joining us. I don't always agree with what he has to say, but for everyone that is watching at the moment on the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show, we love your feedback. Join us with this discussion. I think there's a lot to chew over from those questions that Tim answered. So, but do you know what? I am such a big fan of you, Steve Molk, mainly because we get to talk television. Are you going to give us some? Are you going to give us the TV news?
It's
We're
Monday,
coming up the tea now?
and Mulkey is here for television. Mulk, it's been a very big day for Channel 10.
Yeah, it really has been. Look, we saw it this morning in a special pre-recorded announcement that went out to predominantly advertisers, but of course a bunch of people in the media, talking about effectively how great 10's start to the year has been and what's coming down the pipe for them. And this is part of the great vision. I love the setup that it was sort of this fake Skype call between a whole bunch of the 10 talent there. Very well done. And then, of course, coupled into that was Beverly McGarvey and Rod Prosser, two of the heads of 10 here in Australia, delivering to the market a reminder that they are very competitive, that they are, from their perspective, doing well in under 50s, but also that they are delivering some great numbers around some of their key shows, things like I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, Survivor All-Stars, and, of course, right now, MasterChef.
Indeed. And look, the point of these videos is to make a big splash, get advertisers excited. Let's go through it bit by bit. What are the big programs 10 are excited about?
Well, they're absolutely keen to point out that MasterChef is doing great business, but down the pipe, Bachelor in Paradise is big business for them, and one that they gave us a nice sizzle on the end of the video today, and it looked great. Honestly,
and
it's going to be...
This is the promo here, Mulk.
Yeah, it's going to do good business for 10. I think, again, because we get to see, beautiful people that we know in a situation that is very remote to what we're living now. So there's a bit of an extension about, projecting ourselves into that and having a holiday and maybe finding love. That's the premise of the show. We just have to deal with that. Of course, Junior MasterChef got a big plug. They are casting for that right now. And they're reminding us that still coming down the pipe is The Bachelor. Still coming down the pipe, The Living Room, the new look Living Room, back on 10 on Friday nights very shortly. It's going to be a very buoyant thing. The other thing that they sizzled, Rod, who are you? Rob, is a new multi-channel coming to 10.
And rapid shift to 10.
So, sorry, we'll start that clip again because what that one is, that's Rod Prosser, and he went very big in this presentation from a business perspective, made a big push for a bigger share of the revenue pie. Let's have a listen to what he said.
This year, we have seen a dramatic and rapid shift to 10. The speed of this is critical. While many of our clients and agency partners have benefited from moving as fast as the viewers, some haven't. In this market, it's critical to be agile, dynamic, fast-moving, and to recognise that the world has changed, including the TV world. As audiences move, the ease of buying must also shift.
He's got a fair point, doesn't he, Malk?
He really does. Look, there have been audience growth. I think they mentioned earlier in the presentation, 20% year-on-year ratings growth, which sounds amazing. However, to put that in some context, they're coming off a bit of a low base. So the fact that they've had some good shows means that they have a marked increase, which is really positive for 10. Don't misunderstand me there. He's right that the advertisers and the agencies that have moved quickly to lock into 10 and their let's call it their revamped look at the under 50s market are benefiting because that's the audience that they're trying to draw. Now, 10, like 7, like 9, are pushing very hard to what is an even more sort of reducing advertising pool as far as dollars available, though as things start to open up, that money will start to flow back slowly. But 10 are fair. They want to go in and get their slice of the pie and reminding them that they're not, what did he say? I think the words were, we're no longer the third network in Australia. I don't know who they're beating, but they're certainly very competitive this year.
They certainly are, and he might be playing in the under 50 demos. We don't know what he's basing that on, but 10 have had some good ratings results this year, that's for sure. Because traditionally media companies, media buyers, they've done their deals months and months out. It's based on relationships, not always actual figures, or if it is based on figures, there is a delay. And that's Rod's point, really, isn't it? That it's time to move faster and react to networks when they're doing well.
Yes.
But that would also, there's a yin and yang to that, because if you're not doing so well, the bottom can fall out very quickly then.
And advertisers and viewers can swing away just as quickly. It's really important for the commercial networks, just to get inside baseball for a second, that the new OzTam holistic ratings platform, when that does land, which has been delayed because of the whole COVID-19 situation, when that does land, it will give them a much bigger and broader picture to present to advertisers around how popular or not their shows have been.
Indeed. Well, Mark, we always appreciate your time. Thank you for being on the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. We will see you next Monday for more TV talk. And, of course, we will hear you tomorrow morning in the TV Black Box podcast feed.
Cannot wait. Happy birthday, Robbo.
Oh, thanks, Mark. Thank you.
Well, boys, I got to tell you what, a big show. We've had it all today. The format's been completely out the window, but I found it very interesting to hear what Tim Wilson had to say. It's interesting looking at the news today. There was a lot of news about COVID-19. It was really hard to get away from it. I like to have a balance in our rundown between a bit of COVID and a bit of other stuff at the moment. But Robbo, it was COVID heavy, wasn't it? The news, all the news around today.
It's really tough, and I've said this for a while. I think it's great we get all the COVID news, but I'd love to see from our 6 p.m. news and our 7 p.m. news on ABC, just like a 20-minute COVID block, and then we move on. Like it's just like I'm aware and I want to know what's happening with COVID, but I also just want to know that there are other things going on in the world, including sports rorts, and yes, we haven't forgotten about that. That's very important, and I think that kind of news really needs to be given headlines as well.
Oh, look, I couldn't agree more. But, Ben, we've always got our entertainment, which you keep us across, and we will have more entertainment tomorrow. But one of the things I do love is the ability to talk about these issues. And, sorry, that's what I was going to say, Robert. I knew I was trying to get somewhere. I was just trying to talk until I got there. I did hear on a news website that they have tried to put non-COVID-19 stuff at the top of this, what they call the splash, and it actually hasn't. It hasn't actually worked. And so people still want news about COVID-19.
Sure. Yeah, and that's the thing. I get there's an appetite there, but I'd also there must be also a lot of people who want to see other news, and it's really important that we follow that other news.
Well, we give you a bit of everything here at the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. And on that note, Robbo, I hope you have a great birthday. We love you, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
And so glad we could celebrate this special day with you. Are we allowed to say how old you are?
No, I'm 28. That's my TV age.
All right. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. as we stream across the nation and on Ticker TV for the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. Goodbye.
It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo.